Hi, thank you for coming. I'm Michelle Davies, a teacher from Kelowna, and I'm working now with the BCTF in the Internal Relations Division. I work with the Code of Ethics and with Mediation Services. First, I want to express our thanks for you as TTOC reps for being there to help your colleagues be the best they can be and fit seamlessly into our schools and organizations. Without TTOCs, this profession cannot exist. It is likely one of the most complex jobs in our system, and you have an incredible need for exemplary social interpersonal skills, as is evidenced by the sheer number of encounters that you have in any given day. You could potentially interact with hundreds of people in different schools, with different students, different administrators, all sorts of people who you deal with on a daily basis, and every day is going to be a little bit different in some situations for you. So just dealing with different staff rooms and the quirks associated with who sits where, and it's just not an easy job for a lot of the time. The expectations of administrators vary, and what teachers expect you to do in their classrooms and out there. So while there are some TTOCs who are career TTOCs and they choose that as a career, a lot of us start our career as a TTOC and we don't really know where we fit in or what our rights or responsibilities are. Being new to the profession adds a whole other complexity to this work. The rules, the classroom setups, the day books, or sometimes lack of day books in the classroom, the need to leave behind plans for the next day, and the 6 a.m. calls. I mean, the struggle is real. And we really appreciate you for being there for us. Without TTOCs, there could be no release time for any of the union training, for our professional development days, for our sick time, for anything that we need to be out of the classroom for. Without you, we just can't do it. And we're dependent on you as professionals to be there in our class and do the work for us. So without you, it just doesn't happen. While my children were young, I actually did TTOC work for about 10 years, and I loved how it enabled me to really learn what was going on in the classrooms around. But it didn't come without its struggles either. It's not always a bed of roses in that classroom, and you need to know what your rights are and what your accompanying responsibilities are. The BCTF expects all members to adhere to their code of ethics. And as members of the BCTF, TTOCs are expected as well to abide by those rules. To address this, the BCTF has constructed a list of 10 clauses in the form of the Code of Ethics that informs its members' behaviors. It is important that each TTOC understands the Code of Ethics. It's found on the BCTF website if you want the exact wording. Members of the Teachers Federation, teachers in general, are held to a higher moral standard than the rest of the population. And as such, it's difficult sometimes to know exactly where the boundaries lie. While it might not seem important to you at this point in your career, or you don't have any issues that are boiling up right now, at one point in your career this might be important to you, and it's important to have it in the back of your brain somewhere. Hopefully you'll never need it, but if you do, you'll remember, oh yeah, she said this. So the Code of Ethics. The BCTF Code of Ethics is the list of the guidelines that tell us how to behave, first of all with our students, then with our colleagues and parents, and then with the union in general. Breaches of that Code of Ethics are dealt with by the BCTF Judicial Council. Members who are found to have breached the Code of Ethics can be disciplined by the Judicial Council hearing panel. While it is meant to be an educative process and we aren't out for blood, it really is a stressful process at times for both people who are involved in it, and the more we can avoid it, really the better. More on this later. We'll talk about some ways of avoiding it if you can. So the first few clauses deal with students, as I said, judiciously and fairly as a parent in absentia. And then it goes into how you have to be private with the information that you have with it, and then you talk about how you have to be able to talk with parents and colleagues about your practice. Then it talks about how you deal with a potential problem with a colleague, somebody who's doing something in their class that you're really not sure is good, or you just are curious about it. We have a duty to talk to our colleagues about these things and to talk to the parents about it, and then we have a duty to our union. So just because you you disagree or you're not sure about what somebody's doing in their class, doesn't mean you can't say it, but there are certain ways that you have to do it. So the most important thing for you to know is about Clause 5. How do you deal with a colleague about their work or related work where you have a concern? It's normal and it's okay to have those questions, but you have to deal with it in a certain way. So it's in confidence, it's in writing, and then in confidence to somebody else who can help them. Don't discuss your colleague's work or related work at the pub, with your friends, in a coffee shop, online on Facebook. Don't Instagram it. Don't put it out there on Twitter in any negative way. Any negative comment that you have about your colleague's work or related work goes only to that colleague in private, in writing, and then to somebody else who can help. That's really, really important for you to learn. And it also works on the other side of the fence as well. No colleague who you work for or with, if you're working for a teacher on a certain day and they've got a problem with your work or related work, they need to contact you directly. They don't get to go and talk in the staff room about this person did this, and I'm not impressed. They need to talk to you about it, and if they don't, you have the right to address them about that. So we can talk a little bit more about that in a bit, but you also need to know that in your heart of hearts, if you're worried about safety of a student, if there's a field trip or if there's something going on in a class and you walk by and you're like, that is really definitely dangerous, your duty is to report that to the administration. If it's not, really important right away that you deal with it, if it's not definitely, and you just got a concern about it, please talk to your colleague. But if the field trip is leaving and you're worried about it and you need to talk to somebody about it, you talk to your administration and you stop it before it goes any further. If you don't, the teacher regulation branch could find you culpable for not acting in the student's best interest. So it's interesting, you have to talk to your colleague about their work or related work. If it's a safety issue, you go straight to your administration. If it's sexual harassment or harassment in any way, then somebody is treating you in a way that is really making you feel unsafe in your workplace, you also can go directly to your employer with that concern. That's really important that you understand that. And if you have any questions about where that line is at any point, talk to your local president. If your local president's not around, you can talk to your staff rep. If they're not around, you can always call the BCTF. You can call me, extension 1803, and I'd be delighted to chat with you about it. Clause 5 also clearly states that it is not to be considered a breach of the Code of Ethics for a member to follow legal requirements or official protocols when reporting child protection issues. In fact, you do not talk to your colleague about that. If you feel that there's inappropriate behavior going on, that would be reported directly to your employer. You don't give people time to destroy evidence if there is something that's going on. If it's a concern around a parent not protecting their child, you would report that to the Ministry of Children and Families. So again, if you're not sure about your local protocols, you would go to your local president and make sure that you do that. Teacher regulation branch will take that super, super seriously. So every person who does call me about a potential breach of Clause 5, I'm going to tell them, could we think about taking this to a mediation process first? Because in doing so, you come up with all the reasons that people aren't getting along. And in there somewhere, there's an assumption that's been made normally by one person about a behavior of another. And 90% of the time, that assumption is not right. So once we get back to exactly what the situation is all about, and we can talk about it in a safe, facilitated way, people can often avoid the use of the Judicial Council. So it's really helpful that we have that program as well. You don't have to talk to your colleague about it first. If you say, I've got a problem with this person, you phone me up, Michelle, I've got a problem with this person, blah, 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 but I really don't want to talk to them about it, I can phone that person for you and say, your colleague's got a bit of a concern, she'd like to have this conversation, she's not sure how you're going to react, would you please sit down at a mediation with him or her, and we take it from there. All you have to do is call me. If you can talk to your colleague about it, that's great. If you're both in agreement, we can go ahead and do a mediation. So the mediation looks like this. You fill out a form. Your colleague fills out a form. You send it in to me. We pick 2 people who are mediators, who are also teachers, who will come out to your local, set you up in a safe place, talk to one of you and the other one separately initially, and then you put you both in the same room together, and they facilitate a conversation. We've got an amazing success rate. We can do mediations with other teachers, with administrators, with QP workers, with bus drivers. We can do them with parents, just probably not your spouse. Unless, of course, your spouse is a teacher, and no, we're not going to do the marriage counseling here. But almost anything else, we are game to work with you. Just don't wait until the world is coming down on you to ask for some help with the mediation. If you can't physically be in the same room with the person, it's a problem. And before it gets to that, please give us a call. And after it gets to that even, I mean, it's not too late to deal with. It's a lot easier if you don't let things simmer too long. So at some point it will be obvious to you that there is a communication breakdown, and then you just need to let us know, and we'll come out and hopefully give you some help on that. So that's it. That's the internal mediation services and the Code of Ethics in a nutshell.